Hello everyone, my name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War, Season 5, Episode 3.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, we're going to pick up where we left off in the book Ultimate Journey by Robert Monroe, the third book in his three-book trilogy. We left off on chapter 4, titled Hail and Farewell. So let's see what Dr. Monroe says here. He says, I followed the dwindling curl of light through the darkness, for I don't know how long. Suddenly I was in a room, a normal sort of room, sparsely furnished, with a few chairs and easy chairs and a table. 2 large windows allowed in rays of sunlight. Outside there appeared to be a stand of tall trees. It could be anywhere on earth. At a desk on one side of the room sat a person. I couldn't tell whether it was male or female. The face and body structure could be either. The face was almost unlined, the hair light brown and down just around the ears. The age somewhere between 30 and 50 as far as I could tell. The clothing was simple, a white shirt and dark slacks. But it was the radiation that stunned me. It was like standing in bright spring sunlight that was filled with every human emotion that ever existed. It was almost overwhelming and yet familiar. It was equally balanced. One moment it was male, then I was sure it was a female, a true equal, a he/she. He/she. Listen, folks, that's Dr. Monroe's words, not mine. This is, again, him having an out-of-body experience, meeting up with an entity in this room that he couldn't quite tell whether it was male or female, so he calls it he/she. Again, folks, this book was written years ago, so take it with a grain of salt. It says the radiation closed off. He/she, there had to be a name. It looked up. The eyes were bottomless. I could detect no expression or emission. The control was perfect, yet I could not understand the reason for the restraint. And so here's some of the conversation that Monroe had with this entity, right? The entity said to him, you might call me an organizer or facilitator, whichever you like. And he said, organizing naturally, introducing a variable, just as you do, such as this book or the mind-altering programs you disseminate, all available, or all add a variable into the lives of those who encounter them. So this entity said basically one of its jobs, as what it quotes, calls itself an organizer or a facilitator, is to throw in or introduce variables into the life of human beings. And it says to Dr. Monroe, it says, just like you do with this book or the mind-altering programs you disseminate, these all become variables into the lives of those who encounter them. I like to think of the Mind War podcast in the same way. The things that we're learning here in the Mind War, the things that we're learning through the Gateway program, These are all new variables into your life, which once you apply them can bring about major changes, positive, fundamental, progressive changes to your life for success, happiness, and just healing and balance. It says, now, instead of all the questions, why don't you read what needs organizing and the goals to be achieved? Okay, so this is this entity telling Dr. Monroe now, here's why I put these variables in, and here's the goals that we're trying to achieve. Okay, and the spirit or this entity says to him, I can give you what you call a lesson about that, about a plan that doesn't involve communism or socialism, capitalism, or dictatorship. Okay, so right away this conversation gets very strange. This entity is now trying to tell Dr. Monroe, here are things that the human, species can do in order to create some type of new structure that doesn't involve communism, socialism, capitalism, or dictatorship. All right, I'm all ears. So Monroe says, they say that can't be done. And the spirit says, that is what makes it worth the effort. It needs a unified worldwide human endeavor. This will happen through recognized necessity, not through religions, race, or political beliefs, or force of arms. Monroe says, necessity is severe stuff. The world would have to be in rough shape. That is the reason for waiting. The time will come. But Monroe says, but worldwide, humans have never agreed upon anything. So it's interesting that this entity is telling Dr. Monroe that in the future, through necessity, through some type of event that occurs worldwide, that humanity will have to come together and create a new structure that is not recognized through religion, race, political beliefs, or force of arms, but instead necessity. And necessity is so much stronger than any of those things. The necessity, the need for food, water, clothing, shelter is so much more important than any religion, race, political belief, or force of arms. I thought that was very interesting. I thought that was kind of cool to hear, that there might be some new structure for all of us coming in the future. Now, let's see. I think this is Monroe talking to his spirit guide. He's kind of left that entity, and the spirit starts to talk with him about some growth that Monroe is going through. And he says this, because you are seeking other knowledge, your path is changing. You will be moving in a new direction. We will no longer be able to meet you as we are doing now. That which you desire can only be reached in another form. You are well prepared for it. So now Monroe has really kind of set his mind on learning something deeper, going further in his journey, okay? And so he's moving away from just the exploration of the different locales that we can visit through the out-of-body experience. He's moving away from just learning the tools that we need, our energy toolbar, our energy conversion box, our resonant energy balloon, those type of tools that we've been taught. He's kind of moving away from those things now, and he wants to see what's next, what lies beyond all of those basic lessons, and what is the real purpose of doing all of this, right? And again, his spirit friend says, the desire can only be reached in another form. So again, it's almost as if he's going to have to change forms, right? So that was chapter 4. It wasn't a long one. There wasn't a whole lot to it. Again, Monroe talking with different spirits and working with his spirit guide. It's all, this wasn't as strange as some of the other ones. But again, we can see Monroe moving in a new in a new direction and wanting to learn something deeper. And again, that was chapter 4, Hail and Farewell, from the book Ultimate Journey. All right, folks, let's jump into chapter 5 of Ultimate Journey, titled Recoup and Regroup. Monroe starts off saying, I was supposed to be taking a new direction, but I had no idea or clue as to what that meant. Linked to this was the question, what was the basic I had missed? Okay, so this word basic, he capitalizes it. It is, some type of thought process, some type of new knowledge that he's looking for that is a basic level of knowledge. And he feels like he's missed it through all of his journeys and all of the exploration he's done so far. He's missing what he calls the basic, again with a capital B. However, there was one item I was sure of. Whatever the direction, it was an integral part of a learning process, whether I liked it or not. Again, this is a learning process. That's what life is. We've kind of come to know that. Life is about learning from the very beginning till the very end. And this learning process and the important parts of that learning process, that knowledge that we're striving for, you have to find it where it's at in whatever direction it takes us. Again, like he says here, whether we like it or not. You're going to face that so often in the Gateway program and through your spiritual journey. You're going to come up against truths that you have to accept whether you like it or not. And folks, there's something beautiful about that. Because when you accept this knowledge, when you accept these truths, you are able to put down the defenses and the walls that you've built up that were defending you, that were blocking you from seeing those truths. And again, sometimes those walls have to come down with a sledgehammer, right? That's that part of whether you like it or not. Sometimes you have to tear those walls down, no matter how safe and secure you feel behind them. They're also preventing you from moving forward. I turned again to the basic. What could it be? Something I realized was missing from my own different overview. Again, different overview is also capitalized. We talked about that before. That's just his terminology for belief system. He's coming up with a new belief system for himself and sharing it with us, and he just calls it a different overview. The only approach I could think of was to go back to basics in an attempt to discover what the missing one was. I had no choice. What was needed was a solid baseline of well-tested knowing before I could venture into the unknown areas where I hoped to uncover the missing basic. To begin with, I needed to establish a first priority, a clear understanding of the here and now, of physical life, just as it is, without philosophical and emotional discoloration. This would make a firm foundation. So with all of this in mind, I settled down to put my thoughts in order. And so before he begins going in this new direction and really trying to understand what this basic is that he's missing, he says we have to create a baseline. We have to come up with a firm foundation to what actual physical life is. What are the baseline of physical life without philosophical and emotional discoloration? Getting down to that very baseline of life. What is it? And so he goes into what he calls the Earth life system. And he spends a few chapters here, or a few paragraphs here, talking about the food chain, how the food chain was created, the very fundamentals of what survival is. And we're going to look at some of those things here. He says, number one, On entry into the Earth life system, so the Earth life system, again, he capitalizes those three words. It's just physical life, life here on Earth, again, being part of natural selection, being part of the food chain, just physical life in general. So he says, on entry into the Earth life system, each life form is imprinted, probably through DNA, with a prime directive: survive. Okay, so the first thing that he says, our first fundamental baseline of being physically alive in this world is survival. Survival is the very first thing. So next, number 2, he says, the Earth life system is impersonal in that each life form competes with all others for life-maintaining nutrients. Okay, the Earth that we live on and all the animals and other life forms that we, share the Earth with, they're all in competition. We are all in competition with each other. No matter how much we cooperate today, it's still a competition for those vital life-maintaining nutrients. So again, life is about survival, and then the next part is competition. We survive through the competition, ensuring our survival through making sure that we get the resources that we need to survive, right? So number 3, it says, any awareness not related to physical survival is denigrated. Okay. Now he's saying this. Anything that we do in our lives beyond the basic need to physically survive, anything that we do, thoughts, emotions, actions, those are all denigrated. When it comes just to the very baseline of survival, anything that we do, those are all lower level needs, right? And if you think of yourself in a situation where we don't live in a first world country and most of our needs are met and it becomes more competitive in nature, if that occurred, so many of the emotions and issues that we deal with on a daily basis are all going to fall to the wayside. No one's going to care about the clothes that you wear, the makeup that you wear, the car that you drive, the title that you hold here at a job or whatever you've earned from your university time. No one's going to care about those things. They're all going to fall to the wayside if things broke down and we got closer to those baselines of the need to survive, right? Number 4, it says the basic pattern of the system is change. Stasis is entropy. Entropy is death. Thus, imbalance is constant, which creates a steady adaptive response at all levels. Okay, we're constantly changing. From birth to death, every single day we change. Either we are growing or we are decaying, right? We kind of hit that midlife, and then the body begins, it stops its kind of growth and it starts to decay and it starts to die. That change is constant. But that goes even further, and that goes just into our normal life, right? If you become static, and you're sitting around not doing anything, you're not learning, you're not putting in any work, then it becomes entropy, right? You think of it as if someone has spent so much of their life exercising, lifting weights, being healthy, and then all of a sudden they stop and now they're sitting around and they're not doing anything, they're not exercising anymore, you're going to see their muscles go through entropy, right? They're going to shrink, and that's what we're talking about, is you constantly have to keep fighting. You constantly have to keep working from birth to death. Every day of our lives, there's no stopping. Because when you do stop, that's it. It all just turns to dust. That's why we work so hard. That's why we fight these battles of the mind war. For our different overview, the Earth life system is seen as a food chain predator system. Although it is rarely accepted as such, it may appear chaotic and complex, but it is organized and operates under a few simple rules. Grow and exist as long as you can, get what you need to exist, and maintain your species by reproducing. Okay, so for our belief system and our baseline understanding of the Earth life system, meaning what it means to survive in physical life today on the Earth, number one, we have to grow and exist as long as we can. We have to be born, we have to grow older, stronger, healthier, smarter, faster, and we need to maintain that as long as we can. That's life, okay? We need to get what we need to exist. That's where the competition comes in. We have to fight for those resources from all the other competition that we face in the world. And we have to maintain our species by reproducing, okay? That's another crucial piece of survival. Just because you survive from life to death, if you don't reproduce, the human species doesn't survive. That's also part of survival. And no matter how much you might not want to hear this, all the young people in my life who've asked me, what is the purpose of life? Why are we alive? What are we doing? The answer that I give them, and they often are not happy with it, is you have to have children. That's the most important thing that I've done in my life. It has made everything else pale in comparison. Every other success that I've had pales in comparison to having children. That was the most important part. In my life right now, and kind of looking back through my life, I also see that teaching others, or not teaching, I'm not trying to teach you these things. I'm trying to share with you what I've learned, right? I don't want to sit here as a teacher. I want to sit here as an equal of yours and share with you what I've learned, okay? I'm not an authority figure on any of these things. I'm just sharing with you what I'm learning, right? And that's been very important to me. And again, when it comes to the basic of survival, things like sharing knowledge and all that type of stuff, it again, some of that stuff starts to fall to the wayside, right? Unless the knowledge that you're sharing is crucial to survival. A lot of the things that we're learning here go beyond survival, and that's what we're going to look into. There are no limitations or conditions in applying these rules. Strength, speed, deception, sharp sensory awareness, and response all are great assets. Symbiosis and parasitic patterns are highly acceptable. Honor, ethics, empathy, and the like are non-existent. Each participant is a predator, and the process cannot be altered or changed as long as the Earth life system exists. Survival is difficult, if not impossible, without predatory action. Folks, when you look at some of the most successful people in the world today, they live in a mindset of survival. They are predators, right? They prey upon the rest of humanity in their fight for those resources, in that competition. They use every underhanded tactic that they need in order for them to gain those resources that they need to feel, again, like they're going beyond just survival. They're filling the needs of their ego and whatever else might drive them, okay? They act very predatory. It's something to be very mindful of. Once you start to learn more of this predatory action and how these predators think, right, you start to see them more and more. You start to understand who these people are in your daily life, right? And again, we often, culture and society, we raise these people up as the most successful, right? So again, it's important to learn from them how to be successful and how to move forward, but we also have to do it with empathy, because at this point in life, something that we should all be thankful of, this time in history right now, we are not forced to live through just the survival mode. We are able to move beyond that. So Monroe says here, the conquest had a significant and vital price. By devoting virtually all of its energies into the Earth life system, the new species disregarded or discounted any direct knowledge of what might lie beyond. So it became heavily locked into the reality of the Earth life system concept, but in direct conflict with this massive accumulation of and preoccupation with earthly knowledge was the most essential characteristic of the species, a mind conscious, foreign to the system itself. It was this developing mind that provided the means to overwhelm all other species, that continued to take the original survival command to extremities and absurdities, totally inconsistent with and beyond what could even remotely be construed as need. So he's talking about, as humans evolved, we started to slowly, one lesson at a time, become more successful in survival, right? Hunter-gatherers, we started to create crops and all of those things, and then it started to be cities and nations and finance and all the things that make up the world today. Again, we've moved far beyond our survival command into extremities and absurdities that are totally inconsistent with just surviving. That's the world we live in today. We've moved past just survival. Again and again, the alien human mind began to express and demonstrate elements completely incompatible with the Earth life system. There were, first, concern and empathy as to other members of the species, and second, concern and empathy as to the members of other species, and third, a growing curiosity and uncomfortable suspicion as to the limitations apparently imposed on all participants in the system. So as we evolved, our human mind we started to become concerned and have empathy for our fellow human beings. Again, empathy is such a huge and important piece of what it means to be human. I think that if we focused on empathy and really started kind of a belief system wrapped around empathy, we could do away with religions. We could maybe even do away with politics and so many other things. Because what do you find with religion? With religion, we say, here's a list of commandments that you have to follow. If you break these commandments, those are called sins, right? And sinning is usually when you harm someone else or maybe even harming yourself, right? But as real human beings in a physical life body, we don't need a list of rules to tell us that hurting someone else is wrong, okay? We've all been hurt before. We know what it means to be in pain, physically or emotionally. So we know instinctively that when we hurt someone else, that's bad, right? It's that simple. We could harness that empathy and that understanding and say, we don't need a list of rules to tell us not to hurt someone else. It's internal to all of us. And I think it would be so much better if we could focus on a belief system centered on empathy versus rules that say, if you're bad, you're going to hell, but if you're good, you're going to heaven. Those are all future prizes that you're going to win, right? That doesn't make any sense. If the only reason that you don't go around hurting other people is because you're afraid you're going to go to hell, that's not good. That's the opposite of empathy, right? Empathy is that built-in thing that helps guide us and helps us not hurt others, right? History and philosophy are full of curiosity seekers and suspicious human minds. That's us. The mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks. There has always been, as there is today, a very thin layer of human minds who have the time and the energy to sit back and think. They have moved past the immediate need for survival effort. How many are there? 1 in 1,000? 1 in 10,000? 1 in 100,000? Instead of planning and plotting how to exploit their fellow species or to pull riches from the earth, these curious and suspicious human minds sought for patterns beyond the earth life system in themselves and in others. As explorers of the gateway, this is exactly what he's talking about. People like us, elite members of this members of this elite club, of these gateway explorers who have moved past the immediate need to survive. We have that set up. My hope is that all of you are surviving out there just fine. You have all the food, clothing, shelter that you need, whether it's even just the most basic level. That's what we're living here at the Mind War Estates, right? We got that basic level of survival. But we take this not for granted. We take this as an opportunity to start searching what is beyond survival. And as the author states here, that could be 1 in 100,000 of us out there doing that. When you think of the billions of people in the world, so many of them are still in that survival mindset day to day. They don't have the opportunity to do this, but we do. It's our purpose. We have to do this. It's our directive to do this. If not, we're just pissing away such an important chance to learn something more than survival, and again, to share it with others. They found enough to strike responsive chords in their own being, and they passed along what they found. The message was that human beings are more than mere animals living and dying in the earth life system. Yet to date, little has been achieved as a result beyond such conceptions as hope, faith, guilt, simple belief, and a poorly defined collection of hints and suggestions under the general heading of love. So the species as a whole remains unfulfilled and restless. I hope you feel unfulfilled and restless. Not to the point where it eats you away and stops you from moving forward, but that restlessness inside of us is what pushes us forward. We want to achieve deeper results than just hope and faith. We want to step away from guilt. We're going to remove those societal, cultural, and religious wet blankets that forced guilt upon us and told us things like the Gateway program in the spiritual exploration that we'll be doing in future seasons of the Mind War podcast, these things are not evil. We're moving away from that. We understand that that's not real and that those fake limitations are not necessary. That restlessness is what drives us. And that's, I think, what was driving Dr. Monroe. That was chapter 5 of Ultimate Journey. Again, chapter 5 was called Recoup and Regroup. 2 more great chapters from the 3rd book in Dr. Monroe's 3-book trilogy. And we are going to be doing a deep dive into Wave 5 Exploring, Tape 3, Exploring Intuition, after a word from our sponsor.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War.
All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to do a deep dive into Wave 5 Exploring, Tape 3, Exploring Intuition. So I listened to this tape again last night using the enhancements of the Malabar strain of psilocybin along with THC. I will say that there was a point during this tape that my headphones went out. The sound just stopped. So I was kind of taken out of it right in the middle, which was kind of unfortunate. But I reconnected the headphones and got right back into it. I don't remember there being too much as far as physical feelings. There weren't a whole lot of new sounds. Again, we have a new voice that we're hearing. I believe the tapes I'm listening to are Dr. Monroe's wife. There are definitely new sounds. It sounds more digital. I believe there was some music at the beginning of this one. So again, some new sounds, but nothing too outside of the norm in tape 5-3. So it says here, in this exercise, you'll use the Focus 12 state of expanded awareness as a natural foundation for further exploration of your intuitive abilities. Move into your preparatory process by the method you have learned. Move into Focus 12. I will join you. Now that you're in Focus 12, expand more and more. So again, we're in Focus 12, the expanded state of awareness. Our perception, our thinking has moved outside of the boundaries of our physical brain, and our mind is doing the thinking out here. I describe it as sort of white static electricity is what it feels like. It's kind of shooting out of you, and as it does, your thoughts and perceptions move with it. Allow your conscious to expand even more, deeper and deeper, far beyond the limitations of the 5 physical senses. Now in this state of expanded awareness, you're going to express your intent to understand and know more fully who you are as an intuitive being and your relationship with the source of your intuition. So now the question that we're asking, this intention, is saying that we want to understand more. So again, we're sending this question out into the universe as above. The answer of who we are as an intuitive being and strengthening that relationship with the intuitive person inside of us. So below, it comes from within. Express your intent to deepen your awareness of this integral and natural part of who you truly are, your true self-essence. Now, from this place of greater awareness, first explore any obstacles within you, which might hinder you from experiencing and trusting yourself as an intuitive being. So the first thing that we're going to do is remove obstacles which might be blocking us from accepting our intuition. And so, again, around this time is when the tape cut out, so there was some confusion for me. I think this is a tape that I want to go back and review a few more times. I think I want to go back through this one and really focus on that center of intuition. We'll talk about it in a moment about what I was actually feeling and what I kind of learned through this tape, but it says, ask for help in identifying and limiting any limiting beliefs which may prevent you from knowing and trusting your intuitive self. Do this now. Express your intent. Okay, so again, any limiting beliefs, those societal, cultural, and religious wet blankets that have been put upon us, someone else's teachings, someone else's belief systems that have been forced upon you, we're going to identify those limiting beliefs, and now we're going to release those limiting thoughts and beliefs easily and gently, allowing them one by one to drift up and away from you, up and away, releasing those feelings freer and lighter as they move up and away. Now you're free to enter a deeper level of communication. You're going to visualize these limiting beliefs floating away from you. That's it. It's so simple. We look to the outside world in this constant struggle, this battle for what we're teaching you here today, what we're sharing with you here today. This ability to let go of limiting beliefs and open yourselves up to being free to understand who you truly are and get a serious, strengthened relationship with the source of intuition within you. We see that struggle out there all the time. And everybody's saying, oh, you got to add this religion or these politics or this culture or whatever. It's all nonsense. We're seeing here how simple it can be. Through this process, in this state of mind, in this state of being, we simply just let them go. We let them float away. And we just watch them float off into the abyss. They float into the darkness where there is no energy. There is no sustenance for them. And they just disintegrate into nothing. It's what they are. It's what they deserve. These limiting belief systems that are being forced upon you. When you stop believing in them, they lose their power. A greater sense of awareness of this profoundly wise and knowing part of you. Express your intent, your sincere desire to experience and know more. Express your intent, your sincere desire to experience and know more fully the source of your intuition. Its relationship to you, its unique, expressive subtleties and nuances. Invite this wise and cherished part of you to communicate, to answer questions, to provide needed information whatever is right for you. And I will call you when it is time to return. The reason that I'm feeling emotional about this is because I know and so many people out there that are hurting right now. And it's those limiting belief systems that have you all confused, that have you hating yourself for who and what you truly are. And I know within all of you, there is a sincere desire to experience and know more fully that source within you. The intuition and its relationship to you. And each one of you, this is so beautiful right here. It's unique and it expresses itself with subtleties and nuances. You're going to invite this wise and cherished part of you to communicate with you. It's already a part of you. It's there. It's wise. It loves you. It wants to help you. But it can't if you are constantly allowing limiting belief systems to hold you down. From this time forward, whenever you desire to know something with great clarity, all you need to do is inhale. Remember your own unique feeling and say in your mind, say to yourself, plus no, and then exhale. So when you need to consciously connect with your intuitive feelings, you're going to take that deep breath. You're going to say to yourself, plus no, plus knowledge, K-N-O-W. You need to know, and you're going to exhale. And whenever you do this, your perception will open beyond your 5 physical senses. And called for the more you do, and the more you do this, the more you actively, let's see, it'll move beyond your physical senses, and you will know what you need to know in whatever situation and the action that is called for. The more you do this, the more you actively practice your intuition skills, the easier and more effective it will become. So again, the more you do this practice, the more you focus on your intuition, you'll understand and you'll start to trust more and more the actions that you're being told. Here's what you need to do. This is what your intuition is telling you. This is what your gut feeling is telling you. Okay? And make sure that you express gratitude for this greater awareness, this greater trust and confidence in your intuitive self. So last night during this tape, again, there were some interruptions. So I need to go back and listen to this tape again. But what happened for me was during the part where my body is falling asleep, there was a very clear divide. The right side of my body, I could tell, was fully asleep. The whole body was asleep, but it presented itself in the right side of my brain, my mind, right? Where the left side was still wide awake. It was almost as if there were 2 separate beings. The conscious left brain, which was still wide awake, and he was almost looking over at the right side, this physical side of the body, the physical side of the mind, like, hey, dude, wake up. We have work to do, right? And so that was really the message that I took. And I think we explore it a little more in future chapters, this idea of the left brain, which wants us to accomplish things and move forward and have these logical goals, is so often limited by the right brain, which controls the physical body. You know, you think of yourself, you work all day, you do 8 hours plus a day, you come home from work and you're exhausted, right? But you get home and you know you have some chores to do. You got to do the dishes, maybe vacuum. You got some laundry to do. And when you walk into the house, you look around and you see these things that need to get done, and your left brain is ready to go. It wants to get those things done because it's having anxiety because those things aren't done. It knows that it can't really truly relax until those chores are done. But the right side of your brain, that physical body, is saying, dude, I just worked 8+ hours. I'm exhausted. I got to lay down. And so now the anxiety again starts to, rear its ugly head because the two halves aren't communicating properly, right? The left brain maybe isn't being as empathetic to the right side of the brain, the physical body. But so often the physical body, that right brain, takes advantage of the left brain and says, I'm too tired. I don't want to. I'd rather get dopamine hits by playing video games, scrolling on my phone all day, doing drugs, drinking, sex, whatever it is. That's more important than the goals that the left brain is setting over here for success and progress, right? So when this was happening, there wasn't a ton of visuals, but there was this divide I was kind of seeing. And in the middle of it, in this kind of sounds silly, it almost made me laugh, right? I saw the silhouette of myself in front of me, right? It was kind of like the smaller version of me. And it was just a silhouette. And this version of me was made up of like space and stars, right? So if you kind of think of that, you just see the silhouette of a man standing there in front of me. But it was made up of space and stars, right? That was kind of how it was colored in. And that was what I understood to be the middleman, the middle me, right? The middle victor. That's the true person that has to deal with the left and the right brain and the desires of both sides. Maybe that's where intuition is held within that middleman, because he knows what's best. He knows what can actually be accomplished, right? He knows that when the right side is lying to the left or the left side is lying to the right, he's that mediator in the middle, okay? So again, I need to go back and go over this tape, I think a few more times, and really get that closer look into intuition. I think we discovered some amazing things in the last episode where we talked about reviewing intuitive events of our past and then actually going back and inserting into that time frame the intuitive thought that we're having, this deja vu, this ESP, this future knowing that we had back then. We're able to go back in time and insert that. That's such an amazing and profound finding that, again, that could be a whole branch of research on its own, this idea of going back in time using tape 5-2 to input intuitive events into our own mind. I thought that was pretty amazing. I really liked that one. This one, Exploring Intuition, tape 5-3, was a little different. Now, before we finish up here, one thing that I came to realize after listening to tape 5-2, so that was about 2 weeks ago. So over the 2 weeks, I started to realize intuition isn't always just the successful intuition, right? So the story that I told in the last episode, that was an example of a very successful intuitive event. But what I also started to understand was disappointment. And those times in our lives where we didn't listen to our intuition. The times where we let ourselves down. The times where we failed. That's a form of intuition also. That feeling that you get when you let yourself down. When you don't trust your gut. When you don't act on that intuitive thought that you had. And to be honest, in my life, and maybe yours also, that far outweighs any type of successful intuitive event. This idea of disappointment, letting ourselves down, not trusting our gut, and not taking the action that we knew was necessary. Oftentimes that manifests itself, again, not trying to be too hard on the right brain here and the physical body, But often it's those limitations of the physical body that let us down the most. For me, I thought a lot about my time as an alcoholic. 20 years of being a Joe Six-Pack. In so many of those nights where I had already had too many beers and could feel myself physically being sick, but the body still craved another can of poison. The left brain was screaming, "Don't do it. You're poisoning and killing yourself. Don't do it." But the right brain and the body just takes over. Again, we've talked about the archons, right? This idea from the last couple of seasons of these aliens or spirit beings harvesting our loosh, right? We brought that down to reality. We know that that's a silly story that's not real, but we equate the archons to the organizations, corporations, and institutions that pollute our minds, poison our bodies, and corrupt our souls. Those alcohol manufacturers know exactly what they're doing to get us physically addicted to their product because they are physically addicted to our money. Their greed is more important than our health. That's why they are evil. We can actually call them evil. That's fine. There are a few things in this world that truly are evil, and that's an example of one. When greed of the few overtakes the health and vitality and life of the many. But that's an example. That was something I struggled with. There were so many other instances, and I didn't come up with these by listening to the tapes again. These were things that were just kind of flooding my mind over the last 2 weeks. A lot of disappointment. A lot of, just being upset with myself of, man, you didn't listen to your gut that time. You didn't listen to your instincts that time, So that's something that I needed to share with all of you because I want you to be prepared for that also. Okay. The most important part, when you are having those thoughts, have them, address them. Think about how it made you feel. Think about what created that feeling. Process it. You don't have to forget about it, but you're also not going to beat yourself up about it anymore. I'm not asking you to forgive yourself for it. I believe forgiveness is a sin. I don't believe in forgiveness. But you have to move forward, right? Forgive but never forget. I often hear forgive and forget. That's wrong. I think it's important never to forget these things. But it's also important not to allow the kind of negative sadness or, again, disappointment or discontent that those events in your life in the past, what they brought into your life, you have to be able to move past them, right? And it's difficult. So again, kind of a warning. Tape 5-2 can bring about some very amazing discoveries in your intuition. But also remember, it may ask you to start addressing some deeper things, some things that you were disappointed in yourself with, right? But that's okay. We do that. It's part of the growth system. It's part of the mind war. It's why we fight. It's why we fight every day. This is a self-help process that we're going through, right? It's part of growth and moving forward, and being able to move past those events in our lives that have been like an anchor holding us down, holding us underwater. Okay? You have the authority and the responsibility to understand those events in the proper context now. Now that we've moved past them, now that you're in the future, because these are past events, you're going to learn from them. You're going to not allow those type of things to happen again, or we're going to work as hard as we can not to allow them to happen. And we're going to grow from them. And that's awesome. That's what we're doing here in the Mind War. Okay? So, folks, another great episode today. Again, working from Ultimate Journey. We did Wave 5, Exploring Tape 3, Exploring Intuition. I appreciate you being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.